For decades, rumors have swirled about the relationship between Meg Ryan and Russell Crowe. Fans speculated, tabloids whispered, and social media erupted with theories, but until now, the truth has remained behind closed doors. At 64, Meg Ryan is finally speaking out. In an exclusive revelation, she shares her side of the story, raw, unfiltered, and nothing like the narratives that have followed her for years. What she discloses is not just personal. It's shocking, unexpected, and challenges everything fans believed about the Hollywood romance that never fully played out on the public stage. Ryan opens up about the moments that were misrepresented, the media stories that twisted facts, and the private challenges that shaped her choices. She talks about vulnerability, trust, and how fame can turn even the most intimate experiences into public speculation. For fans who idolize the couple, her words are both heartbreaking and enlightening, a reminder that celebrity lives are never as simple as they appear. But the most surprising revelations involve Crowe himself. According to Ryan, the truth behind their interactions, both personal and professional, is far from the scandalized headlines. There are layers of emotion, misunderstandings, and mutual respect that no one ever reported, until now. For anyone who has wondered what really happened between Meg Ryan and Russell Crowe, this is the moment to hear it straight from the source. And once you do, one thing becomes clear: the story you thought you knew is only half the picture. The truth at last is out, and it's nothing short of shocking. For years, the rumored connection between Meg Ryan and Russell Crowe has been the subject of endless speculation. Paparazzi shots, tabloid headlines, and late-night gossip shows tried to piece together a story that neither fully confirmed nor entirely denied the buzz. But for Meg Ryan, the truth remained tucked away, behind a careful wall of silence. At 64, she finally decided it was time to speak. Not through cryptic interviews or staged statements, but with candor and precision that cut through decades of rumor. This was her story, unfiltered, personal, and deeply revealing. Ryan begins by recalling the early days of their acquaintance. The glances on set, the subtle exchanges, the moments of genuine connection that the public never witnessed. It wasn't a headline, she explains, it was life. And life is messy, complicated, and rarely as simple as it appears in print. For the first time, she frames the relationship on her own terms, free from sensationalism and media distortion. But what's truly shocking are the details she shares about the challenges they faced. Ryan paints a portrait of mutual respect shadowed by misunderstanding. Crowe, often portrayed as intense and intimidating, appears in her recollection as deeply human, vulnerable in ways only those closest to him could see. The tension between public perception and private reality becomes stark, and suddenly the story everyone thought they knew feels incomplete. She also reveals how fame shaped their interactions. The constant media attention, the relentless scrutiny, and the invasive speculation forced decisions that were never purely about the heart. Every step, every word, and even silences were interpreted by the public, often inaccurately. But the most surprising insight comes when Ryan addresses the moments that were misreported. Certain stories, long assumed true, were either exaggerated or entirely fabricated. And while she had remained silent out of caution, that silence allowed misconceptions to grow, creating a narrative that didn't reflect the reality of their connection. By the end of her revelation, one thing is clear: this isn't just a tale of Hollywood romance or scandal or gossip. It's a story about perception, truth, and the power of finally claiming your voice. For Meg Ryan, breaking her silence isn't merely about Crowe. It's about taking ownership of a narrative that has followed her for decades. And in doing so, she reveals a truth far more human, nuanced, and shocking than anyone could have imagined. When Meg Ryan finally chose to speak, she didn't start with headlines or controversies, she started with moments. Moments that were private, fleeting, and profoundly human. For decades, fans and media alike had speculated about her interactions with Russell Crowe, but Ryan wanted to set the record straight. The truth was far more nuanced than anyone imagined. She recalls their first meetings on set, not dramatic encounters, but ordinary exchanges that hinted at connection. A shared laugh over a forgotten line, a glance during a tense scene, the subtle camaraderie of two actors immersed in their craft. These were the moments that outsiders never saw, but they shaped the way they understood each other. Ryan describes how Crowe's intensity, often portrayed as intimidating, had another side entirely. He was deeply focused, yes, she recalls, but also incredibly aware of the people around him. That focus could be misread, but it came from a place of passion, not dominance. This, she explains, was one of the biggest misunderstandings the public had about him. Many saw conflict where there was care, distance where there was respect. The actress also opens up about the influence of fame on their interactions. Every private word, every small gesture was under the microscope. Journalists, fans, and gossip columns dissected every appearance, creating a narrative that often conflicted with reality. Ryan had learned early on that silence was both a shield and a trap. Speaking too soon could be twisted, staying quiet could let rumors fester. Then there were the moments of real vulnerability. Ryan shares how certain conversations with Crowe revealed a depth rarely visible on screen. They talked about fears, ambitions, and personal challenges, topics that rarely make it past closed doors. These moments were significant not because of scandal, but because they reflected trust and emotional connection. Perhaps the most shocking part of her account is how misinterpretation shaped public perception. Stories about tension or conflict, she reveals, were often exaggerated or based on incomplete observations. People thought they knew what was happening, but they didn't, she says. And that misunderstanding shaped the way I had to navigate everything. Through these recollections, Ryan paints a picture of a relationship layered with complexity, admiration, miscommunication, mutual respect, and moments of laughter and vulnerability. The media's simplified narrative, stormy, dramatic, or romanticized, never captured these subtleties for decades. The relationship between Meg Ryan and Russell Crowe has been the subject of endless speculation. Tabloid headlines, gossip columns, and online forums were filled with dramatic assumptions, scandalous interpretations, and wild exaggerations. For the public, it seemed like a story of tension, conflict, or even rivalry. For Ryan, it was something entirely different, a story of nuance, private moments, and a truth that had been buried beneath layers of misconception. At 64, Ryan finally decided to break her silence. In a candid conversation that felt like a private confession, she began dismantling the myths piece by piece. She explained that much of what had been reported about her and Crowe was either misinterpreted or fabricated. Simple gestures were blown out of proportion. Ordinary disagreements on set became feuds in the media. Moments of distance were interpreted as hostility. And through it all, she remained largely silent, unwilling to feed the media's appetite for drama. One of the most persistent myths she addressed was the idea that their relationship had been fraught with tension or animosity. People assumed conflict where there was none, she revealed. Sometimes Russell and I had different approaches, or we disagreed on creative choices, but that's part of collaborating. It wasn't personal, it was work. She emphasized that the intensity often perceived by outsiders was a reflection of their commitment to craft, not a personal clash. Ryan also touched on the rumors suggesting romantic entanglement or jealousy. Those stories were entirely speculative, she said. There were moments of connection, yes, but nothing that matched the sensational headlines. And for years, staying silent felt safer than correcting every false narrative. She reflected on how that silence had its own cost, allowing the public imagination to fill in the blanks, often in ways that misrepresented both her and Crowe. But it wasn't just about defending herself, it was about revealing the truth behind public perception. Ryan described how media framing, selective reporting, and the viral nature of gossip had amplified minor incidents into enduring myths. A heated discussion on set could be written as a feud. A serious expression caught by a photographer could be interpreted as anger. Even a pause in interaction was read as animosity. In reality, these were ordinary moments, mundane fragments of daily life, magnified and distorted beyond recognition. She also explained how fame itself complicated the situation. Constant scrutiny created a pressure cooker environment where privacy was nearly impossible. Every action, every word, even silence was interpreted, she said. It was exhausting and it shaped how we both behaved in public. Ryan admitted that over time. The cumulative effect of misrepresentation led her to become more guarded, not only with the media but with those around her. Perhaps the most striking revelation was how misunderstandings shaped Crowe's public image in ways that were inaccurate. While he was often portrayed as volatile or intimidating, Ryan described a side of him that was thoughtful, generous, and deeply introspective. The intensity people saw on the outside was only one part of him, she explained. Behind closed doors, he was considerate, self-aware, and deeply committed to the people around him. Ryan also debunked stories that had suggested personal conflicts between them influenced professional projects. She clarified that all collaboration had been professional, respectful, and guided by mutual artistic goals. Misread expressions or offhand comments had been spun into headlines that mischaracterized their interactions. By the end of her reflection, Ryan framed the larger lesson: perception is not reality. What the public thought they knew about her and Crowe was filtered through rumor, speculation, and incomplete information. The truth was far more layered, human, and nuanced. And by finally speaking out, she reclaimed control of her narrative, giving the public a glimpse into experiences that had been overshadowed by myth. This isn't just about correcting falsehoods. It's about understanding the cost of fame and the resilience required to maintain authenticity under scrutiny. Ryan's words provide a rare insight into the emotional complexity of celebrity life, reminding readers that behind every headline is a real person with experiences, choices, and emotions often obscured by public fascination. For those who have followed the story for years, this serves as a revelation. The myths, misunderstandings, and exaggerations are dismantled, replaced by a narrative that is intimate, authentic, and deeply human. And for Ryan, speaking out is more than clarification. It's a reclaiming of voice, agency, and truth in a world that often confuses perception with reality. By the time Meg Ryan decided to speak openly, she knew the story would challenge everything the public thought they knew about her and Russell Crowe. The media had long painted a picture of tension, rivalry, and occasional drama, but behind the cameras, the reality was far more complex, and in many ways shocking. Ryan begins by recalling some of the most misunderstood interactions with Crowe. People assumed animosity when there was none, she said, her voice steady but reflective. She explained that their collaboration, especially on high-stakes projects, was often intense, not because of personal conflict, but because both were perfectionists. Long hours, high pressure, and creative disagreements were interpreted by the public as personal clashes, when in reality, they were the natural friction of two passionate artists. One of the most revealing moments she shared involved a particular scene that had been widely misreported. The media claimed that Crowe's reaction to a line she delivered was dismissive, sparking rumors of tension. In truth, Ryan explained, it was a miscommunication, a moment of creative debate that became distorted into gossip. The story that everyone remembers never happened, she said. It was a professional discussion, not a feud. But the revelations didn't stop at work dynamics. Ryan also addressed personal misunderstandings that had circulated for years. Rumors about jealousy, estrangement, and hidden conflicts were rampant online, and many assumed the two had clashed repeatedly. In fact, she revealed, much of the tension was fabricated or exaggerated. We respected each other deeply, she said. Yes, there were disagreements, but they were normal human disagreements. Nothing more. The most shocking truth, however, involved the degree of mutual understanding and trust they had quietly cultivated. While the world focused on supposed conflicts, Ryan and Crowe had formed a bond built on shared experience, mutual respect, and discreet support for one another. These nuances were invisible to the public, and as a result, the media's portrayal had completely mischaracterized their relationship. Ryan also reflected on the psychological toll of constant scrutiny. Every gesture, expression, and word was analyzed and often distorted. Even silence became a story, she explained. Every misstep, every pause was turned into fodder for speculation. It was exhausting to live like that. She recounted how this pressure influenced the way she interacted with Crowe, sometimes with more caution, sometimes with restraint, further fueling public misconceptions. In addition, Ryan revealed how carefully orchestrated media narratives influenced fan perception. Paparazzi images, selective editing, and out-of-context quotes had all contributed to a story that was both inaccurate and persistent. It was like living inside a rumor, she said. No matter what we did, people interpreted it the way they wanted to. Perhaps the most unexpected revelation was how much they protected each other behind the scenes. Ryan admitted that despite public misunderstandings, Crowe had consistently offered support in ways the public never saw. Small gestures, private conversations, and professional guidance all reflected a level of loyalty and trust that contrasted sharply with their public image. By the end of the chapter, it becomes clear that the story most fans believed, of rivalry, tension, or dramatic clashes, was largely a myth. Instead, Ryan portrays a dynamic defined by professionalism, respect, and mutual care, with the only real conflict arising from public perception itself. Through this candid reflection, Ryan not only corrects the record, but also exposes the dangerous gap between reality and perception in the world of fame. She shows that the truth is rarely as simple as the headlines suggest, and that even the most public lives can harbor unseen depth, complexity, and humanity. This closes with a poignant observation. While the world may have misinterpreted their relationship, Ryan's willingness to speak finally allows the truth to be seen, and it is far more authentic and far more surprising than anyone ever imagined.